Hello everyone, welcome back, and today we're discussing the second part of any video production. That is the actual production of the video, meaning the filming of said video. And so for some of you this might be actually the hardest thing to do, because to do this you actually have to have some kind of solid block of time to film each segment of your video. Whereas the pre-production and then the post-production can be done in between feeding small children and washing things and whatever else you need to do. The production of it has to be pretty much all at one shot. So we're going to get to all of the details, and that was a kind of specific example. So let's get started with that. So let's head to the car. Alright everyone, today we are talking about production. So first of all, welcome to Kingsland Park. This is the park that's right behind Staples and Stop and Shop and all those places. And wonderful. It's a very long place, so it's very nice to film in. There's a lot of different locations, different areas you can be. And it has the great benefit for me, for today, of having picnic tables. So that's why it has been chosen. Anyway, today we're talking about production, meaning the actual filming of your videos. And so there's basically two sections to what we're going to talk about today: what to shoot and what to shoot it with, meaning gear. So let's start off with what to shoot. So there's two basic types of video that you're going to need to know about. There's A-roll and B-roll. A is your main thing that you're doing. This is the lesson, this is the message, this is what I'm filming right now. This is the meat and bread and potatoes of your video. This is going to be most of it. This is you talking, this is your head making words. That is your A-roll, and that's fairly simple. Set up your tripod, set your camera on it, press record, stand in front, do your talking. Wave at things that are not there yet and put them in later. We're going to talk about that later on. B-roll is slightly less common. You may not have thought you would need to do this, but this is all that introduction video that I have in there, all the getting from point A to point B, all the doing things, all the assembling of stuff, if there's stuff to be assembled, whatever it is, whatever else there is, that's called B-roll. And the purpose of the B-roll is kind of the spices, to make it interesting, to give some kind of continuity. I was in one place, now I'm somewhere else. How did I get here? B-roll. I'm in a location, where am I? All you can do is see grass and trees. B-roll. Right? What that does, what that is simply small snippets of video of other things that you put in. You put some music over it, and that provides some nice context as to where you are and what you're doing. Alright, so now let's head over to that previously mentioned picnic table, and now we're going to talk about the gear that you need to make great videos. Alright everyone, so now let's talk about gear. So now there's three categories of gear that you will need to make your videos wonderful, and let's break them down for you. So the first thing you got to have is a camera. So there's cameras in everyone's pockets these days. You can have a dedicated camera that shoots video. So whatever you do choose to go with, that is up to you, and I'm sure either one will be perfectly fine. You can't go wrong with the one on your phone. It's really a wonderful, wonderful camera. There is, however, one slight limitation to your phone, and that is that it has a tiny, tiny sensor. In fact, I took apart a phone once. It was awesome, and I found the sensor. It's tiny. And the issue with that is that if you bring that into a low light situation, such as in the dark in your house when the lighting is not so great, you're going to end up with a very, very grainy or noisy, or as we say, noisy image, which is where you get benefits from having a dedicated camera like this. They have a much bigger sensor and you have a lot less noise. There is, however, a downside of using this kind of camera, and that is that the autofocus is not as good as on your phone. The autofocus on your phone is phenomenal. You point at something, you never have had to worry about things being in or out of focus. Everything is in focus, which for these kinds of videos is all you really need. With this, however, it's not the case. In fact, I never use autofocus because on Nikon until very, very recently, with the latest and greatest, which I don't own, their autofocus for video was terrible. And so I just manually focus. I have a monitor up there so I can see what the camera is seeing and make sure I'm in focus. So just the thing to think about if you want to up your production quality and go with a full camera, you may have to worry about focusing manually. The next up, very, very, very important, is sound, especially to us teachers, because if they can't hear you, they didn't learn anything. So this is a super inexpensive, what's called a shotgun microphone. It goes on top of your camera and it sends sound to your camera. So to use a microphone like this, you'll need a microphone jack on your camera. Now, your phone can accept one with an adapter. If it's a regular phone that has a headphone jack, you can put this in. If it's not, then you can use an adapter. There are, however, all professional cameras will have some kind of mic input. That's right over here. However, there are some point-and-shoot cameras, some little dedicated cameras. They are probably better video quality than your phone, but they very often do not have anywhere to put a microphone in. So then you'll be using the microphone on your camera, which is not that great. So keep that in mind. The third and final category of stuff that you need to make great videos like this is you need a tripod. So there's an immense amount of tripods. The rule of thumb with tripods is that the more weight you're going to put on it, the stronger and therefore probably more expensive it needs to be. Of course, there are exceptions, but the general rule is if you go too cheap, it's going to fall apart out of the box. Mid-level cheap, it's going to support your phone, maybe a light camera, and then as you go slightly more into the 150, that range, you can start supporting like a bigger camera, or as you start getting into the couple of $100 range, you can start supporting a bigger camera and more stuff. Now, for your needs, I would personally recommend this one. This is the Magnus VT video tripod. What's this? The 300. The 100 is good, but it's kind of shaky. So if there's like a breeze, you're going to get wobble, which is not great. Or say if you're in your house and someone walks by, you're going to bad. This guy is great. The other really wonderful thing that this has is it has right here, it has a bubble level, which means you can tell exactly whether or not your footage is coming out straight or not. So we're going to explain why that's a problem in 1 second, but first, a warning. Trigger warning for those who experience OCD. The following footage is deliberately off-kilter, and those who are disturbed by such content, please fast forward to... It pains me to do this, but I'm now going to shift my footage 1 degree set off level. How does that look? You can tell? Yeah, it's not great, massively obvious. If you were across the room, you probably wouldn't notice, but you can tell. You can tell that there's something slightly off, there's something slightly wrong. And you might not say it bothers you. It bothers me doing it to this footage, because it wasn't like this. I had to adjust it weird in post. So this is something that is against my nature. If I see this as something that's going to bother me the whole time, you're like, yeah, good point, great lesson, I understand what you're saying, but and it just grates on the nerves. And so you don't want to be grating on your students' nerves, because some of them are like me and get annoyed by the tiny little off. So once you have your tripod, it's a good tripod, it's not going to fall apart, it's good, hefty, it's not too hefty, and you have that bubble level thing, just use it. Just check, am I level before you start shooting? Because then you can level things afterwards, but it's a pain, so just do it here. So the purpose of all of these things, all these advanced cameras and the external microphones to the camera, even though the camera comes with a built-in one, and the tripods, well, the tripod is a very basic thing just to hold the camera, but the other two this very simple purpose to everything, and it's like this. Whenever there's an issue in audio or in the video quality, or if your tripod's off level, off center, that just makes a distraction. And as I'm sure you know in your regular classes, the less distractions you have to your lesson, the better. Right? If your students can't hear you properly, then that creates a distraction in your lesson, and if they have to work really hard to hear you, some of them can do it, some of them can't do it, some of them can but won't. So, one very important concept in these kinds of lessons is the idea of multiple takes. In a regular lesson, you don't get multiple takes. So once it comes out of your mouth, that's it. You've said it. It will be there forever. That's not the case in video. In video, if you say something and then you realize, oh, that doesn't belong there, you can chop it out, and you can either relocate it somewhere else or you can not put it in at all. Right? If you stumble over your words and you can't talk straight, chop it out, and it's never been there at all. This more gets into editing, but point being, if you make a mistake in take 1, you can do take 2. If you make a mistake in take 2, you can always do take 3. You can also do a part. Let's say you have a whole lesson, it's a 10-minute monologue about integers. You don't have to give a 10-minute monologue and then, whoop, I made a mistake in minute 9, back to the beginning. Once you get to a part that you can cut to, then you can go back to that part and keep talking. For instance, if you're in the middle of a sentence and make a mistake, you have to go back to the beginning of that sentence. If you make a mistake in the middle of a paragraph, you don't have to repeat the whole paragraph. You just repeat that last sentence, and then you, in post, we're going to learn about that next time, you can edit those two together, and so there's probably a little bit of a jump because you're not in the exact same spot as you were before, but that's fine. Here comes the question, though, when do you stop? Because we're teachers, we're not actors, we're not going to be perfect, right? The camera's also staying, it's not keeps cutting to something else. We're here, right? It's not going anywhere. So eventually, within a long time of talking, I'm sure you're going to make plenty of mistakes. And I've made many, many mistakes. Some segments you're never going to see because they're going to get cut out entirely. So when is enough? When you just say, forget it, it goes in. Here's when you say that. When you got the point across. If the point's gotten across, but you made a mistake in something and you repeated yourself, and you said it twice, that's fine. What if you stumbled over a word, but then you corrected yourself, you said you couldn't talk, and then you cleared it up? That's fine. Your first video, hate to break it to you, is going to be terrible. My first video was awful. Point being, you will improve over time. You're going to get more comfortable in front of the camera. You're going to get better at expressing yourself and not forgetting what you had on your mind. So don't worry about it. As they say, done is better than perfect. So if it's done, but it's not perfect, good. If it's perfect, but you never put it out, then your kids are not going to learn anything because they didn't get a video that you didn't send because you were still working on it. So tomorrow we're going to talk about the most daunting part of this of all, which is the question, how do you edit video? So we're going to talk all about that and how you edit and how you stick in titles and how you put the music and the sound effects and all the gags I love to do. We're going to talk all about that. So if you want to see more of this and find out well about how to edit your videos, why don't you hit that notification button, like, subscribe, all those fun things. It's YouTube, you put them on the bottom. If you want to share this with others who might also benefit from it, go for it. That would be wonderful, and have a wonderful, wonderful day. Bye-bye.